All right, today we're going to look at something new from Anthropic that honestly could completely change how we build digital stuff. It's a tool called Claude Design, and the idea behind it, well, it feels like it's straight out of science fiction. So let's just dive right in.
Just stop and think about that for a second. What if you didn't need to code? What if you didn't need to mess with complicated software? You just use your words, and those words turn into a real website or an app or a presentation right before your eyes. That's the wild idea we're going to unpack.
But okay, to really get why this is such a game changer, we kind of have to talk about how things are right now. We need to look at the old way of doing things, which for a lot of people is a total headache. You know the feeling, right? If you've ever tried to build anything, you get this amazing idea, but then getting that idea out of your head and onto the screen, it's this long, tangled process of tiny, tedious tweaks and just fighting with software. And this really just lays it all out. The old way? We're talking hours and hours of coding or trying to navigate these super complex workflows in programs like Figma, which is what pretty much everyone uses for mockups. The new promise here is basically taking all those hours and squishing them down into minutes. You're not clicking a million buttons anymore, you're just talking to it.
So that finally brings us to the tool that's trying to make all this happen. Let's talk about Claude Design. Design anything in minutes. That's the big claim, right? It's super bold, it's ambitious, and it gets right to the point. The whole goal is just to speed up the creative process, like crazy.
So what is this thing really? The best way to think about it is like having a design partner that's also an AI. You just describe what you want and poof, it builds a first draft for you instantly. And then you just keep talking to it to tweak and refine it.
And what you can make with it is pretty impressive. We're not just talking about little things. It can handle full-on landing pages, user interfaces for mobile apps, entire websites, presentations, even something as simple as a thumbnail for a video.
Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? The magic is really in how simple the whole workflow is. It all comes down to designing through conversation.
The whole thing is basically this super simple three-step loop. First, you describe what you want. You just explain your idea. Second, it builds it. Claude spits out a first version right away. And third, you refine it. You just keep making little adjustments until it looks exactly like what you had in your head.
And that refine step, that's where things get really powerful. Because you're not just stuck with typing commands. Sure, you can keep the conversation going, say something like make that button blue. But you can also use sliders to adjust things, or even click directly on the design and edit it right there. It gives you all these different ways to get it exactly right. So you might be wondering, what's actually making all this possible? What's the engine behind this thing? Let's pop the hood for a sec. Yeah, this is not just some simple app. It's being powered by some really serious AI. The engine running the whole show is called Claude Opus 4.7. That's the brand new model from Anthropic. And the real breakthrough here is that it seems to understand creative intent. It's not just following commands like make a box. It gets the vibe of what you're trying to create. And that's what lets it handle these super complex design requests. And all of this leaves us with this really interesting question, doesn't it? For decades, designers have had to master this incredibly complex software with endless toolbars and menus. But what if the next big design tool isn't a program you have to learn at all? What if it's just a conversation? What would that mean for how fast we can create things, for creativity itself? And maybe most importantly, who gets to call themselves a creator? Now that is something to chew on.